Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the 47th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Shannon B. Today's topic is Step 3 and Hope. Shannon, can you read us the step and tell us what this topic means to you?
Absolutely. Sorry, you guys, you just caught me off guard for 1 second. I was like, decided to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him, right? So for me, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out really is what that step comes down to. And for me, it's been about giving God the drive, like giving God the steering wheel in every area of my life, right? And trusting that His plan for me is far better than my own. So when I think of like turning my thoughts and my actions over to God, I think about my ability to step aside and say, okay, however life is going to play out. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to act on these things, right? That I'm not going to act like faith is an action step at the end of the day too. But I trust in my higher power that however everything turns out is exactly how it's supposed to be.
Nice. I love that. You know, coming from our addiction with our maximum self-centeredness, right? It's almost impossible to consider handing the steering wheel out because we're such control freaks at that point. And, for me, the act of the surrender in the first step and kind of coming to believe with the second step that like the steps are in an order for a reason because it's like with that initial relief from the surrender, right? It gave me hope that there was a different way, and it made me see that there could be a greater serenity in life than I had ever experienced. And I just was baffled by the concept of turning my will over to anything. And I remember it was young Gabriel, I was asking him, I'm like, I just don't get this. And, he said, here's the list of principles. And if you are living, like checklist, honest, integrity, open-mindedness, willingness, like if you're living inside all those, he's like, pretty sure you're inside God's will. Like you don't have to like understand a roadmap. You have to understand a manner of expression of your life. It's more about principled action than it is about like pick up, turn right. Like we're not robots, but we're kind of like love robots
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah.
Well, I like
Okay.
what you
Go
had
ahead.
to say about surrender, right? Like that's not something that I did in any form when it came to life and addiction, right? It was trying to control every outcome, trying to control things, right? The only real time that I was willing to, put the weapons down, so to speak, is when I was inebriated, right? Because I was in an altered state. And when you talk about serenity, right, they say in our literature that we're going to match calamity with serenity. When we, turn our will and our lives over and we come in this program and we're willing to be teachable again. All chaos is all I ever knew. And I thought I was managing really going, like a buck 60 and a 40 with the brake lines cut all the time is the best way I can describe it. Like I thrived on chaos, but at the same time would say I didn't, that I just wanted things to be smooth. But really all I wanted was things to work out the way that I wanted them to work out. And, if anyone had told me when I came into recovery, this is what your life's going to look like, and these are the hardships and these are the experiences you're going to have to go through to get there, I would have said no, thank you, right? Because we don't do well in uncomfortability. We do well in comfortability, inebriation, right? Things working out the way that we want them to. But God, as I say, has given me every lesson that I've needed to learn. And I'm so grateful for it because I wouldn't have the appreciation for my life the way that I do today if I hadn't had to experience things, not as I would maybe have wanted them to. That's how you grow. We're not growing in stagnant, right? We're not growing in comfortability. We're growing in our challenges and our ability to, more than anything, accept that we don't have to have it all figured out.
Well put, Shannon. Gosh, I love you. I'm grateful you're here. Great, good to
Thank
see you
you.
again. Okay, I'm going to start up here. Our whole trouble had been the misuse of willpower. We had tried to bombard our problems with it instead of attempting to bring it into agreement with God's intention for us. To make this increasingly possible is the purpose of AA's 12 steps, and step 3 opens that door. How have you used this step to open this door for you in your life and your step work?
Well, that's quite a loaded question, hey?
I know.
You get me thinking right away. Yeah, so how have I used this step to um basically open the door for different areas of in my life, right? Is pretty much what you're
Mm,
asking me. So
yeah,
spoke before
in a
on our
complicated way.
yeah, right, in a drawn out way, but that's okay. As I said before on our podcast episodes, right? Like having this relationship that I do with my higher power today is the only way that I want to live. Point blank, period. Right? I don't want to have to have all the answers anymore. I never really did, right? I just lied to myself thinking that, I could just manage better. But today, I just have to have faith. I have to do the next right thing in the simplest form, right? When something feels out of sorts with me, I know it's because it's not God's will. And that's how simple I keep it. Because I'm constantly making that connection when I'm up in the morning, right? As soon as I start my day, I'm thanking God for another day of waking up sober, right? I'm praying, I'm asking for help, I'm turning to him, and I'm communicating with my higher power all day long. So that connection's already there, right? So when things come up, I know that I can lean on that higher power. I bring God into everything that I do. And I'm proud to say that. That wasn't always the case, right? I didn't have the relationship I did today, and I certainly wasn't something I was bragging about. But today, like, I'm so grateful for that. It's a relationship, right? I can't have a friendship with somebody if I never speak to them, I never reach out, and then expect that they're going to be there for me in a time of need, right? So by continuing to constantly keep that dialogue going, I know that God has my best interest and it's all going to be okay.
Nice. Woo! See, you can't stump a Shannon. Woo-hoo-hoo. No, you can't. But one of my favorite speaker tapes that I've ever listened to, and uh, it's very funny because I end up okay. So my sponsor turned me on to this one website that's got them, and I kind of started perusing them myself. My
Mhm.
very favorite one, he just like sent me 5 days ago, and it talks about this, but it talks about the conscious contact with God, and the entire disconnection of the conscious contact is us not living presently. And
100%.
how do you not live presently? Well, you live in resentments. So part of you is trapped in the past, right? And then you live in the future with your expectations and robbing yourself of this moment right now. Because because conscious contact with your higher power is not something you can bank. You can't experience yesterday's today, and you can't anticipate what tomorrow's is going to be like now, right? And so the whole point of the speaker was talking about presence. And it's like it boils down to being able to bring yourself to this moment right now. And 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 that's and that's something that I'm finding for myself, that I can get a greater sense of presence from meditation, from catching myself inside my resentments, from backing away from expectations as I see myself forming them, you know and so, first of all, I think I lived in a falsely principled life in addiction. I thought I was honest. I thought I was cool. Like, I thought I was so compassionate. And it's like, man, I was just like intolerant, a jerk, and lying most of the time, especially to myself. You know, like my biggest lying amends needs to be to myself because I was not a trustworthy source of information with my thoughts to my life, you know? Like I was just so deluded in the pursuit of using, you know, like it
I
was
like what
real.
you just said there. I wasn't a trustworthy source of information to myself, right? When
Yeah.
you I can be an untrustworthy source of information to myself today if I'm not spiritually
Mhm.
fit and I'm not aligned with God, right?
What do
Because
we have? A daily reprieve.
based on the contingency
The
of our spiritual
intensity of our spiritual
condition,
condition. That's right.
right? So I take a little step back, then another little step back. Then what happens? The disease that centers in my mind starts to tell me false narratives, right? You're alone. You're hard done by. You deserve this. Like, it just keeps going,
Those
right?
people aren't treating you the way they should, you
This
know?
was a mistake, like
Yeah.
me. How am I affected? How am I affected? Right? Over and over again.
Mm.
And I stay stuck in that. And then that becomes a conversation. And how long until I'm acting on that or I'm starting to believe that, right? There
Hmm.
goes me being of maximum service to other people. There goes me showing up as I want to in my relationship, as a daughter, as an employee, as a friend, all of that, right? Because then it's like, how am what can I get out of this rather than what can I bring to this? So it's a really slippery slope, right? And if I'm not doing the things I need to do on a daily basis, which is that conscious contact with my higher power, pray, meditate, listen to speakers, meetings, like it's all together, right? And also showing up in the world as to what I can contribute to it rather than what can I take from it is it's like the direct line to God, right? Because that's what he wants. He says that we are here to, you know, give, not necessarily to receive all the time. It doesn't mean that,
Hmm.
I don't have needs and things like that, of course. But when I am giving from my heart because I want to versus because I get something back, that's where the real freedom and the serenity comes for me too.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, do you got a question now for me?
Yeah, so you said that you felt like you were living a false principled life, right? And
Hmm.
higher power looks different to everybody. So tell me how you where do you find your conscious contact happens the most, and where do you feel the most connected to your higher power? What does that look like?
Okay, so I would say that, you know, when it occurs, um, in the smile of my family when I'm doing the right thing is one of the places that like, you know, um, I can tell. I can tell that I've been doing the right thing when there's a little more serenity in the family. And you know, I'm not responsible for their serenity, right? I just want to say but how I act definitely affects the circle of peace inside our little home, wherever we are, right? And and then, you know, one thing that I've been really doing a lot is I've been starting to kind of like pray and also do meditation while I'm exercising. Because for me, I have such a fidgety body, like I'm you know, a bit of a hummingbird, and this hummingbird does not land easily, like at all. And so they've got this beautiful heated pool here where we are. And so for the next 27 days, I have been every single morning I swim like 35 to 40 minutes of laps. But inside this, there's been this crazy big bird that's come and been my friend. And like, but it's like, man, I'm finding it really easy to like pray, ask questions, kind of receive answers in the midst of my exercise doing that. And I'm the only one out there because I'm out there at 5 a.m. and you're not even supposed to be in the pool, but I got special permission from the security guard to go in because I'm just like, look, dude, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. This is exercise. This isn't like a guy after a party drowning in a pool, you know? And he saw me when I used to party because I used to stay here. He knows that there's a different guy here now. But you know, and then also too, just inside my music, and then you know, I'm really finding it's happening a lot inside these podcasts just having these conversations. It's like the intimate discussion and conversation and reflection of ideas inside these podcasts has really just kind of left me some days really uplifted and just really thought provoking, you know? Like I'm always kind of reflecting on the last series of people and podcasts that have occurred. And, like just like you, it's like I'm forming this nice community of seekers, of people
Mhm.
seeking, of people seeking to grow.
Hmm. Yeah. So for me, um, he said a few things that like just were very thought provoking to me too, right? Like you find that you really connect with your higher power in form of exercise and that time one on one, right? And I do too, right? Whether that be praying or in the mornings and my meditations, but also when I'm driving, right? Like I will listen to certain pastors I like, right? That dial me in really closely with God, but that's more from like a Christian side of things. But what I have been really challenging myself for is when I'm not in those moments where it's one on one, where I really need, some serenity, a different perspective, to not get irritated, is how can I quickly channel my higher power in those moments, right? And it's just taking that second to listen more than to respond and to say, okay, God, I really need you to give me some words in this moment, right? Because our day gets busy, right? We get working, we're dealing with clients, like the list goes on. And sometimes I know that when I start to feel my blood pressure go up a bit, because I've got a lot on the go, that I can get a little bit more irritated, a little bit more impatient. And then that's when my mind starts going to like, why am I even doing this? And, this was a mistake. And oh, here we go. Now I'm so burnt out. I'm so stressed out, like the talk track, right? But in that moment is stopping and remembering why I'm so grateful for what I have in front of me. I'm so grateful to have a wonderful career. I'm grateful to have good people around me. I'm grateful that I'm able to provide for myself. Yeah, it looks different and there's still struggles and all that, right? But just remembering that gratitude in the moment and quickly saying a little prayer. God, thank you. It just changes the perspective than, what I'm not getting to what I've already received and like praying forward too. And I try to come from an abundant place. Like when I go in any situation, I'm like, God, thank you for the patience you're going to give me today. Thank you for the understanding and compassion you're going to show me. Thank you for me showing up and being fully present in this moment rather than stuck in my head. And that's where I can really keep plugged in and dialed in too. Also, I watch the people in my life. I surround myself with people who have a higher power, who are very calm, rational people, and I watch how they move. And then I'm like, wow, this person, isn't getting frustrated in this situation I would. And I realize that I have choice, right? I have the power of choice. Like, however my day's going to go is really ultimately how I choose to allow it to affect me. Doesn't mean that I can plan everything so that it's perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect, but I can, you know, show up and be a carrier of peace and a producer of serenity rather than a producer of calamity and stress.
Nice. I like that. That was really beautifully put. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question now,
Please
Shannon.
do.
Are you ready? Listo? Like all remaining steps, step three calls for affirmative action. For it is only by action that we can cut away the self will which has always blocked the entry of a higher power into our lives. What actions do you do regularly to enhance your conscious contact with your higher power?
I like this. So, it's a decision, right? So when I arrive at step three, I make that decision. God is going to be everything to me or else he is nothing, right? Like we don't get both. It's not like I take a little bit of God here in this situation. Thanks, God. You can sit this one out. I've got this, right? Like I've learned that the hard way. So it's all areas of my life, my finances, my relationships, my career, my recovery, first and foremost, right? Every area I need God to be the center of that. And the closer I stay to my higher power, the easier everything in life is going to be. It's when I start to take that will back. It's when I say, okay, God, I actually don't need you today, but we'll touch base tomorrow, that I separate myself more and more. So by trying to stay in the center and keep that connection as really my focal point of my life, right? Everything else will just build around that. Like I'm not trying to fit God into my life. I'm fitting my life into God. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So that's how I keep that conscious contact going, is through constantly having that communication, really. Like, I can't not show up to work for a month and then wonder where my paycheck is. Like it doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
I can't say to my clients, like, peace, sorry, I haven't returned any of your messages, in 3 weeks, but, you should be booking in with me, right? Like, it's a trust. So for me
Mhm.
to be able to trust and rely, I have to show up, and I need to show up day in and day out with that. And it doesn't mean that every day I'm firing on all cylinders, but I'll feel it. I feel when I'm cut off from the sunlight of the spirit,
Mhm.
as we say in our literature, or when I'm cut off, where I'm stuck in self, because the misery comes and that negative talk track, right? Like it's like a check-in point all the time. I'm really, really aware of myself and when I get stuck in self-will. And I know, even though like it's not as close as it was at one point, how long until I get in that stinking thinking that I can't take it anymore and then I'm turning for an unhealthy outlet, right? So today, in order to ensure that I don't, right, if all I have to do is keep this relationship going with God, then I'm happy for it, right? I want to have good friendships. I want to have a good, successful relationship with my partner. I want to be a good employee. I want to be all these things, right? And those relationships take nurturing and take me showing up. And it's the same thing with my higher power, right? And honestly, life feels less daunting that way. Like I'll give you an example. Last night, I'm sitting there watching a show and I'm thinking about the weekend, and it's Friday night, okay? We're days away from this responsibility that I know that I have. But right away, I've written off the weekend. I've discounted everything I have to do because I'm like, oh, well, then I'm going to have this and what that's going to look like. Not, hey, enjoy the moment you're in. Tomorrow you get to do this beautiful podcast. Then you're going to do the things you need to do in order of your responsibilities so that when you're committed to this days down the road, you're set up for success, right? And God's going to lead me every step of the way on that. But there was no gratitude in that, right? It was immediately like, oh, this is an inconvenience, or this is what's going to go wrong, or, because I'm trying to control. But when I let things play,
Expectations, premeditated resentments.
if I let things play out the way they're supposed to, and it's just like doing the little things each day, make my life
Mhm.
far more
Mhm.
productive, right? But if I
Mhm.
want to dodge my responsibilities, or, I want to just sit there and be a misery, then that's the kind of outcome that I'm going to have. And those resentments, it's replaying things that have already happened, expecting a different result, right? Like talk about being stuck in depression. I'm going to sit there and marinate on stuff I can't change, and then I'm going to fire up my anxiety predicting things that haven't even happened yet. There's no
Exactly.
there's no need. Like, and we all suffer from it, right? It's not just it's not just people in recovery. It's everyone as a human being. It's a human condition. Like, how many times have you had a conversation in your head of how you think something's going to go with somebody, only for you to be completely wrong on how it is? And it would have just been so much simpler to just say to them, hey, I noticed a bit of I feeling disconnected from you. Can we chat about that? But you've played out already how you think they're going to respond, what's going on. That's the end of this relationship. Like we just get so far ahead of ourselves, right? And we don't need to. So I try to stay in the present as much as I can. And that doesn't mean like, oh, I have these responsibilities. I'm staying so present right now that I'm not doing anything to prepare for them, but I'm taking life as it comes. I want to enjoy the ride. I don't want to miss it or fast forward to the next thing. I've done that my whole life, right? Like, what's next? What's next? It needs to get better. It needs to get better. Well, right now it's good the way it is.
Mhm. Anticipatory anxiety is always worse than the event. I have not had one single time in my life that I could like create like I could create a way worse event in my head than will ever happen. You know, it's so easy to catastrophize and complicate. And then not only that is that it's robbed you of that entire presence leading up to the event. So you know, like however many days or hours or whatever it is, depending on the event, sometimes it's weeks. You know, like sometimes you know something's coming up, and that little mouse wheel of anxiety and stress just keeps you from being present. You know, I really I really try not to bank my joy or serenity on the future. You know, like if I'm not happy now, getting that thing tomorrow is not going to make me happy. And one of the things that I was realizing, and this is kind of one of the cool gifts of being in the program, like before we came to Mexico, I'm at home and I'm having a wonderful time. Like I'm recording the podcast, I'm recording songs, I'm working, I'm walking my dogs, I'm exercising. Like if you groundhog day those days for me for the rest of my life, I'll be just fine, just dandy, like perfect. But knowing that I was coming here, I'm like, I started getting excited, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like I'm like, am I thinking I'm going to be happier there than here? You know, like I'm analyzing this inside my brain, and I realize no, it's just that I am happy that I am going to go there. You know, like there's a difference between like I'll be happy. Ooh, a little bug there, some strange Mexican bug on my microphone. Uh, I'll be happy that there's you know, I'll be happy to have some fresh fruit down here. I'll be happy to smell the ocean, to be swimming, to be outside, to let my skin breathe in the middle of winter when it doesn't in Canada. You know, um, and it's important for me to constantly check in on that because if I'm robbing my presence now for an anticipatory happiness in the future, it means that I'm not living in any gratitude right now. You know, and that's a problem. When I'm not living in a state of gratitude, my I'm probably working in a resentment zone, and that just doesn't serve my life one bit. You know, and one of the things that I'm finding for myself is you know, whether I do it at the end of the day or kind of do check-ins, but kind of taking a little moral inventory all the time, you know, like doing the step 10 kind of throughout the day, where it's just, you know, I'm checking in on how I'm acting and reacting because I know that if I'm getting angry a lot, that means I've created a whole bunch of expectations, like just from myself. I know that, you know, like I'm like, oh, like I'm generally less mad by things that surprise me that I haven't thought of than by something that I've created an expectation on. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm expecting you to be this certain way. And then when you're not, I'm mad. Versus like, oh, that just happened and that's kind of surprising. I'm less mad generally by those moments than by my shattered expectations. And, you know, I think that you know, what actions do you do regularly to enhance your conscious contact? I chip away at my resentments and my shortcomings. Like I chip away at them all the time. And that's just like, you know, that's the only way because I'm not magically present all the time. Well, here we go. Milan's Buddha. No, that's not the way it is, you know, but the only way that I can get ahead with that is by constantly assessing, seeing where I've fallen, seeing where I've climbed, and trying to do the stuff that's helping me climb. You know, like it's just it's a process of trial and error because also what I think is the best route rarely is the best route. You know, like it comes right down to that will. You know, like sometimes sometimes I just need to see a fine example of life, and you know, like. Oh, there was just an AA conference in Puerto Vallarta, which I did not go to because I didn't know, and tickets sell out to it like I guess apparently
Yeah.
like same day. But there was a guy who came up to our meeting the day after that ended, And this guy had like 41 years, and like his share just like boom. Like it was like I'm sitting beside him and I just felt like this serenity and this like knowledge. Like it was like sitting beside somebody just so much farther along in their program than I am. And but like because it was just like he was just spoke so gently and just had such an air of serenity in the way he spoke. You know, it was a pleasure to sit beside, a pleasure to hear every word. It was a pleasure to, you know, and I think that you know, one of the things that I try to keep myself in the middle of the road is, I mean, at this point in my sobriety, it's pretty easy to surround myself with people with more experience. You know, like that's just something that I do, and to try to engage them and have conversations with them, and then also, you know, just like having so one of the things is that I started this little beach meeting and it's been between 3 people and 7 people, really small. But we share multiple rounds. Like it's like you get to go 2 or 3 times. So it's really and cross talking is welcome. It's just it's been a really interesting experience because of where it starts out and then kind of where it spirals up to. And so yeah, just keeping myself as deep into recovery as I can has been something that keeps me in more contact than I've ever experienced before. Do you have another question to ask me, Shannon?
I do.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
So yeah, you touched on a few things and it made me think of stuff too. And we won't get too far ahead in the steps or anything, but to be able to live, you know, in conscious contact with our higher power, right? We need to be clearing that channel. So it can't be like we're closed off from God when we're stuck in self and we're stuck in all of that chaos going on in the mind, right? So for me, keeping myself accountable regularly, you know, making amends as I need to, and doing that check in inventory throughout the day are crucial for me to have a healthy recovery. What does that look like for you? Because I know you and I are very big on staying
Okay, hold
aligned.
on. Just repeat that again from the start. I
Sure.
just yeah.
Sure. So you were speaking about how, like keeping your conscious contact, right? And
Mhm.
inventory and all of that, right? And without getting like too deep into those steps, right? I was sharing that accountability, course correcting, you know, admitting my faults and making amends quickly are all ways for me to keep that channel cleared between me and my higher power.
Mhm.
What does that look like for you? Are those things that are really important to you as well? And how do you hold yourself accountable in your recovery today to stay in conscious contact with your higher power?
So I would say that my accountability starts with the absolute repetition of my program. You know, like there was a guy who just had a 36-year cake at one of these meetings I've been going to down here. And he said, you know, he said, one thing I've learned is that as long as I do the same thing I did the first year I was in recovery, you know, learning his program, he's like, he's like, I don't have to wonder how I'm going to say straight. And I feel that, you know, like right now, thank you, but my program has been solid. And I don't I don't kind of do recovery. I do it every fucking day, all the time. And you know, I do hours a day. And I'm okay with that because I am still living on the fear of my gift of desperation. You know, like I have not a smattering of me ever wants to go back there. And so that I know that this works. And this works how? By me doing it all the time. And if I don't do it all the time, I'd hate to see the result, you know? And do I think I know it all or that I can stop? Man, I look at the people who are, you know, like the guy I sat beside. Man, 41 years and he goes to a conference and can't wait to get to the next meeting after. Like that's showing me that this isn't something that you get and then you walk away. You know, like it literally to me is just based on repetition. And that repetition does have to involve growth. Like that repetition isn't just like I say this one thing, read a paragraph, walk here, do this, say that. It's not because every experience with a sponsee is different, right? And that provides different challenges for purveying information, just like a teacher in a school has to adjust for the 30 students in their class, right? But then also, being sponsored, remaining a student throughout the whole process. That was one of the things that guy said in his share. He said, "Are you sharing like you think you're a master, or are you sharing like you're still the student looking for the information?" And I was like, boom, boom. I want to be the seeker. I want to be the student forever. That's what I want. And so the only way that I will be that person is by making sure I stay curious and keep learning. That's it, you know?
I love that. And you
Hmm.
said, I want to continue to be the student, right? And
Yeah.
ties into what I said before, like remaining teachable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm never going to be on some spiritual hilltop speaking down to somebody, telling them how to live, right? My action will be far better than my words, right? Because people are
Hmm.
drawn to people based on their character, how they treat others, how they show up, right? And those are all principles for me that are really important today, too. So, when I don't handle things well, or, I'm short with somebody, or, I need to own my part in something, I'm doing that right away, right? Like, I'm not somebody who is fearful of apologizing or fearful of admitting I'm wrong. In fact, like, I need to do that because I'm human, right? And it's not like we haven't just caused the harm, right? It's going in and taking accountability for that and saying, hey, you know what? I don't like the way that I spoke to you, or, I don't like the way that I reacted in that situation. Let me take
Exactly.
accountability for that and change that. But also to genuinely change it, not, an apology as a form of manipulation, right? Like if I'm going to say, hey, I'm not okay with that, and I apologize for causing you harm, let me show up differently, then I need to do what I need to do to make sure that I am going to show up differently moving forward. And yeah, it's a lifelong practice. Really, it's a lifestyle for me at the end of the day. It's not a one and done, right? I didn't get the information. Thanks. Here's the diploma. And now, I go on my merry way. No, I need to continue to keep elevating, and we get good at something based by repetition and practice. You haven't written as many songs as you had or become, the musician that you are because you studied it, when you were 9 and then dropped the guitar and, you expect to have a hit album, right? Like it doesn't go that way. And for sure there's talent versus, real practice, but we all have that fundamental idea and understanding of a higher power inside of us. But the more that I connect to that by keeping that channel clear, the more enhanced my life's going to be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of it.
Wonderful. I love that. And I love you. Guess what? Guess who loves you? Me. That's right.
Love you too, my
Um,
friend.
the more we become willing to depend on a higher power, the more independent we actually are. Therefore, dependence, as AA practices it, is really a means of gaining true independence of the spirit. Has this been the case for you? If so, how or how not? Shannon B.
Mm. Dependence on our higher power equals true independence ourselves.
Of the
Absolutely.
spirit. True
Of the
independence
spirit.
of the spirit.
Of the spirit. Yes. So when I hear that, this is what it sounds like to me. The more that I'm letting my higher power lead, the less I have to try to manage my own life. So here's things that we in our past, I'll speak for myself, that I've depended upon for my own joy, my own happiness, just really overall well-being. How people treat me, how things go in my favor, what I'm getting, right? Less consequences in my life so I can live how I want to. Like those all shape up how my um mindset is going to be. But today, I don't rely on other things to make me feel full or happy. I rely on my relationship with my higher power. So the more aligned and in sync I am there, then guess what? I can show up in every single situation and I can see the positive in it, right? And I'm not looking at you or my relationships and saying, you need to fill me up. You need to make me feel good, right? Like self worth, self love, self esteem, it all comes from one word self inside ourselves. What's inside me? My higher power. More dialed I am I in there, the more I'm able to love myself, therefore love other people more. And then I'm independent from relying on people, places, and things to fill me because they don't, right? It's like relying on a substance. It's all short-lived. And then what? I'm stuck with the sick me.
You're stuck with a bunch of expectations on people they'll never satisfy.
Exactly. And that's why we say,
Mhm.
like, you can't make a person your higher power, right? Because people are human, they're faulted, right? They make mistakes. God doesn't. So if I'm starting to put, you know, how life's going to be and how I'm going to feel based on how somebody else treats me or somebody else shows up, what happens when they walk out? They walk out with all of my serenity too? Or what happens
Mhm.
when they fall short because 'cause they're human? And then, I'm miserable too? No, it doesn't work that way. And it's also the taking responsibility for my own life. Like, life is not about frolicking through the meadows with no responsibility and everything's perfect and, we're picking 20s from a field and all of that, right? Like, life is not perfect like that, but there's so much joy in all of it, and if I look at how I can contribute to those things rather than what I can take from them, that state of mind extends, you know? And I'm independent from needing something to feel better. I'm just good as I am, right? I'm trying to be a healthier, more whole person, not a person that has, parts of good, all of it.
I love that. Well said. When I when I kind of stumbled across this quote and created this question, I couldn't help but think of acceptance and the serenity pair, really. One thing, when I am just living in self-will, I am the puppet of my resentments. And and you know, I have an entire dependence on how the world is treating me, on how I react. And and I have no real ability to perceive clearly nor to express clearly. And that like that turbidity in my perception creates a distortion on my reception of everything. And how, when I say something, there's no way I can reflect back accurately the world if I don't see it clearly. And having, what I would call glimmers of acceptance. Like, I call my serenity and my acceptance to come in glimmers. And it's like little, oh shit, that was good. I'd like some more of that. Like, it was those moments of like, and often I don't I can't even really tell it's happening until it's over. Because if I'm really in that present moment, in it, like, I'm not thinking about it because I'm experiencing it, you know? And so when I have those moments of acceptance, and it's like a retrospective, like, oh, might have just done the right thing there. Like, might have just done the right thing there. And I have nothing but a calmness after as my feeling, because I don't have a shame tied to it, a guilt tied to it, an expectation tied to it. I just literally had that moment. Like, the moment was only had in that moment. And I'm not carrying shit from it other than like kind of like a blissful afterthought. And that to me, really is kind of the direction of of the true independence of the spirit, you know? And I, I, I don't ever, I can't even picture, I don't want to say I won't, but I can't even picture living in a state like that all the time. Like I am so far from defect and resentment free, you know, like that it's just, but it's like those little moments, those little glimmers. Let me look in the window to a room that I eventually would like to have a bed in and lie down and sleep inside that room of serenity, you know, like, but at least now I can see what that room looks like. Whereas in my addiction, I had no clue that there was a room, a window, or a door, you know, and without awareness, I'll never instigate change.
Boom.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Boom.
I love
My,
it.
yeah, you know,
Yeah, without awareness, we don't instigate change, right? And
yeah.
if I'm not like living in the now, in the reality versus the delusion, then
Hmm.
I'm showing up to a completely different party than you are. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
Ultimately. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I love what you had to share, right? Like the end of the day, like we are seeking control, right? Like in our addiction, that's how it is. I got to control things. I got to get this outcome this way. I got to, I got all these moving parts going, spinning 20 plates at once, right? None of which are going in the direction I want. How exhausting. Today,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, show me, ask my higher power, show me what you need me to see, you know? And
Hmm.
like, and those moments when you're really on the spiritual beam, when you're really dialed in and you're sitting in a situation and you can see people start to, get a little bit more irritable or freaked out or un unnerved. And we're sitting back going, ah, well, you know what? It's going to be the way that it's going to be. And that doesn't mean that I wake up in the morning, I don't do any responsibilities, I don't look after anything, and I just go, well, it's life on life's terms. However, it's going to be, right? Like I have to show up and participate in my own life. But what I do while I'm participating in that is the next right thing to the best of my ability, but also accept that the outcome's going to be whatever it's going to be, right? How many times have we
Hmm.
worked ourselves into such a state that has been so counterproductive, And I like to use the example of you're in a Tim Hortons drive-through or you're running late, right? So you're driving and you're like, you're irritable, you're laying on the horn, or you're like, oh, what's taking so long? You're worked up, right? It's not gonna speed anything along. It's not like I subconsciously have harbored all of this frustration into the person who's working at the drive-through, and they've been like, Shannon's 4 cars back and she's getting a little bit irritable, we better pick up the pace on here. No, but if I'm laying on the horn, I'm disgruntled, right? I am taking that energy and I'm putting that on other people and I'm putting that out into the universe, and I'm the only one rattled at first, but then I'm causing somebody else that. So it's like, hey, just chill out, let it
Hmm.
be, you
Put on
know
your favorite song, sit back, and
Yeah, or
just,
use that moment to connect with your
mm,
higher power and say, please teach me
yeah.
patience. Because if you're struggling, like if I'm impatient, guess what's going to happen? God's going to put me in every single impatient situation that there is so that I
Yeah,
have to practice the opposite of it. Right?
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Life's cool. We just have to let it roll and, do our best.
You know, and I would like to think that our chores in life are really our physical expression of gratitude for what we have. Like if you if you don't care for the blessings you've been gifted in your life, then that is really not showing gratitude for them.
Yeah.
And if you take care of them like there's something valuable in your life, because if they are, why wouldn't you take care of them? It's not like nobody else's job is to be like, oh, Shannon likes that. I better tend to that. Like that's, like that's not the way the universe works.
No, that's
And
so selfish,
and
self-centered, and self-seeking, right?
yeah, and if you just let your things decay into nothing, there's no form of gratitude in the form of maintenance or care about them. Like what I really see it, like you come down to Mexico, And man, I've been places where people are dirt poor. Like, I mean, where I am right now is one of the wealthier areas because it's a tourist area. But man, you go into a little poor village, they're they're washing off their porch every day. They're sweeping in front of their house. Why? Because they're grateful they have a house, you know, and that's something that, man, in the States and Canada, people are really spoiled about. People feel like they should have a house, not like they're thankful to have one. You
But
know,
it's the
really, most of the time.
perspective right there that you're speaking
Yeah,
about, right?
yeah,
Perspective, the gratitude for having what I have, right? Not the
yeah,
obsession of
exactly.
I'm entitled or I need more. And they look after what they have, right? Where we, and this is a whole other tangent we can go on, in such a consumerism,
Mm.
disposable lifestyle where, oh, doesn't work anymore, I'll get a new one. Or I should or you work really hard to have something that you love and then you find somebody that has a little bit better and then what you have is no longer good, right? Like you're going to be on that hamster wheel because things like external stuff
Things
is
don't make you happy.
no, no.
You make you
Family,
happy.
love, support, we do, God,
Mm.
like it's all an inside job, right?
It
And the things
really
that
is.
I need that I desire and that I love and I cherish, right? And then I need around me, like my family, my friends, things that matter, right? There's no price tag on that stuff, and that's not disposable. And even if those things were removed, right? Am I going to fall apart as a result? No, because, God's going to take care of me. God's going to protect me.
Absolutely. Okay, do you have another question for me?
Yeah, I think we're on just such a um
I'm
on
on a
a good
spiritual high right now. This
yeah, we're
is
really we're really
going
rolling
awesome.
today too. Yeah. So we'll get back to
This is
step
like
three,
classic
right?
Shannon and Milan talking.
I know we're just like so many good things are coming up and I just took a note, so I just wanted to refer back for a second, right? Um, so yeah, we talk about how in step one, the unmanageability of our lives, right? With the substance and without, right? Because there's no spiritual fitness there. And then in step two, we talk about how, you know, um, believing in a higher power can help restore us to sanity. And step three, we're making that decision to allow God to restore us to sanity and everything like that. So you talk about like how you're dialed in each day and stuff like that. How do you, when you're in a situation or you're in a mindset where you're really feeling spiritually unfit, right? What are some of the things that you do in that time to reconnect? And what does that look like for you? And do you struggle sometimes to like get out of that stinking thinking or, like for me, it's pretty
I
slow.
can be a total jerk. Like I can become a total jerk. And the very largest, most frequent cause of that is sleep. I've never been a great sleeper, but I'm a better sleeper now than I ever was before, because I never had such an extended period of clean time where I actually started valuing it. I'm doing more exercise, which makes me more tired. You know, the detriment to the more exercise is that I'm having some shoulder issues from sleeping because I'm working on my arm and upper body a lot, and that's getting sore. So for me, it's like if I'm excessively tired, which today, like I actually did not sleep well last night. And so I'm really trying to watch myself today, like perception versus reality. Is that person doing something that is not nice, or am I just perceiving it as a problem in order for me to get grumpy? You know, and so one of the things I'll do is that if I have time, I'll try to go have a nap. I'll be like, baby needs a nap. Go back to bed, baby." Like, and uh, it, that often can be quite helpful, you know? Another thing that I'll do is just try to remove myself from the situation. Like, I'll literally declare myself as unfit to be around. You know, I'm not, you shouldn't be around me right now. Like I'm absolutely in a shitty time headspace. And generally I'll go into my studio and record some music, or I'll go for a walk with the dogs, but I'll just try to remove myself from being like the last thing I want to do is be a negative effect on someone else's life. And if I'm in a bad headspace, it's just like a series of negative responses. You know, like I always say this, it's like the difference between me tired and not tired is that if I'm tired, everything is a hassle and a problem. If I'm rested, everything's an opportunity to find a solution. And it's literally that far apart. And I don't really feel like I have a middle on that. Like either I had a good sleep or I didn't, but I rarely have kind of a good sleep. You know, like it's one of the two. And you know, one of the things though for me for sure is just trying to get myself away from other people for a bit, you know, and you know, trying to pray it away, to be honest. You know, please remove my anger, my intolerance, my anxiety. Please remove my anger, my intolerance, my anxiety. Try that like 10 times out loud. Try to get to somewhere where I can say it out loud myself. And that helps a lot. And what
I
about you,
like
Shannon?
that. You just spoke about self-acceptance, right? And really understanding yourself and your limitations. And I think that's beautiful. I'm very much like you. I'm either well rested or I'm not, right? There's not like I kind of slept okay because really I usually didn't, but it's getting better, which is great. But I got to remember what you said there is that when I'm not rested, everything's a hassle and an inconvenience, right? But when you are rested, everything's an opportunity to find a solution. Totally. But I am very self-aware too, to the point now that I practice what you do too, right? I'll put my phone away, right? Like it'll have to wait. Like if I'm not in a good headspace, I'm not returning a text, I'm not answering that phone call, right? I'm not doing any of those things where I know and I can feel myself too, right? Like if I'm starting to have a conversation, I'm starting to get resentful at what somebody's saying or, judgmental. I know I'm not fit for that conversation. So I will go do something that's going to get me spiritually dialed back in, right? Praying helps a lot, writing out gratitude, some self-care, and also like I'm done for the day. Like this is as best as I can show up today and we're done. So if I need to go to bed early, I need to shut it down and do some reading, which is what I find to be very therapeutic, take a bath, that's happening. Other thing too is checking, am I eating properly? And I know that like we all fall to that, but it seems just to me that my experience, women, we push ourselves a little bit more than we need to. So 5 and 8, and I'm starting to get hungry. And on top of that, I'm starting to feel a little lightheaded, a little not well. I'm not
I
sure
agree with that.
I'm not showing like hanger, we talk about that, right? So
I'm
I'm not
hangry
gonna show up
sometimes.
well and it'll hit me too, right? So it's like, okay, before I go into this, I need to eat, or I need to eat this morning so that I'm leaving the house, feeling full and nourished, and then my brain's firing too, right? So that it's all part of it, that self-care too, not lounging around in pajamas all day. Not that that's not nice sometimes too, but that's not good for me either. And nor is isolation. That's something else that I watch too. I have my girlfriend and I joke about like the limit you have for how long you can be in your house and before you have to like physically leave. And, for me, that's sometimes a 2-day max. If I'm working from home or something, even though I'm having dialogue with people on meetings and things, I need to go out and get some fresh air. So I go for a walk or I run and get my own groceries or, I do little things like just to have that connection. I need connection. And I'm always making sure that I'm reaching out every day too, whether that's a conversation with family, with someone else that's, in the fellowship like us. And I need connection. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, right? All are things that we have to watch out for because nobody's doing well then. And, like, what's that joke or that meme? Like, sorry for the things I said when I was hungry, like it's true. Like, we're impatient, right? When you're not looking
I
after
really
yourself.
recognized that a long time ago, even in my addiction, or like, I would definitely put off food, but if like I know I'm like, I literally could come in and I'll be like, don't talk to me till I eat, please. Like for your sake, please don't. Because I know that I'm gonna say something I'll regret before I eat. Because I subconsciously I see everybody as a like an obstacle to my food. And if you're talking, it means you're slowing me down by 30 seconds from getting to that food. And I will just like cut it short. Like I'll cut it short.
I do the same thing. I'm like, you know what? I need to eat right now. I want to have this conversation. I want to hear about this. I need you to give me 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Or 15 minutes,
Mm,
whatever it takes, so that I can eat too. And like, this is something that I've been really committing to myself is not, and as we were saying it, I'm thinking to myself, like, when we're done here, I need to eat. But not pushing myself to those limits anymore, right? Like,
mm,
going and like eating regularly real meals or snacks or something, so just so I feel full and I'm not starving, right? Because we tend to go from one extreme. I tend to go from one extreme to the other, and it's not healthy. Like, I need to stay balanced. It's just like,
mm.
I need to pray, I need to stay in contact with my higher power, not wait till the whole house is on fire, right? To be like, oh, where's God now, right? No, like, maintain. Also, too, is looking after my responsibilities is huge for me too, right? What do I need to do today? What are the things I'm putting off? Just do them, because procrastination is, a weapon for me to being spiritually unfit. I know something
2025 is my
lingering,
year of no procrastination. I'm just trying not to procrastinate at all.
because then I'll be like, hey, oh, I know I need to do this. I'll put it off. I'm just going to watch a show. And then I'm not even paying attention because I'm in my head going, as soon as this is over, I need to do this. And then I make these ridiculous little, like, agreements with myself. Okay, one more episode and then I'll do this. When really I could have just got up, done the thing that I needed to do, and then I can be relaxing, right? So yeah,
Mhm.
trying not to procrastinate is big too. It's all just these little adulting things that really like form a peaceful life.
They do because like if you don't procrastinate, right? Like just think about that for 1 second. If you are not procrastinating, you're not beating yourself up for something that you put off for too long that you maybe missed the opportunity on, but you're also not carrying that mental cycling of like, oh, I still need to do this, haven't done this, still need to do this, haven't done this, still need to do like that's the same fucking hamster wheel that was like, gotta get my drugs used, gotta use my drugs, gotta have drugs for tomorrow. Like that's the same fucking wheel, just turning with a different topic, you know?
Yeah, I'm either like, I don't,
And like I'm
the
addicted
opposite
to
of
hating myself.
procrastination is participation, right? I'm
Yeah,
participating, I'm getting things done. And you're right. It's like, also too is affording other people grace to be human and to have faults and to fall short, right? Like, I want for myself too. Understand that, people in my life are going to have tough days, right? I don't have to take it on, but I can give them grace and and show compassion, right? Don't put those expectations on that, every time I have a conversation with one of my friends, it has to be, a a beautiful aha moment and all of that. Like, I can show up for people as they show up for me too. And that's beauty in that.
absolutely beauty in that. I've got one last question for you here, Shannon.
Do
You
it.
ready for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. I don't know if your camera slipped, but I'm only seeing half your head right now.
Oh, sorry. Maybe
It's
it's
okay.
the way
Oh,
that
you slipped down.
oh, there we
There we
go.
go.
There we go. It's because
Okay.
it's a little,
Okay.
thing
Whoa, you
here.
got a neck. I didn't know that. I thought you lost your neck.
It was like this. Now I'm like this. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. Okay, this is a good one. I like this. It's when we try to make our will conform with God's that we begin to use it rightly. To all of this, this was a most wonderful revelation. Our whole trouble had been the misuse of willpower. We had tried to bombard our problems with willpower instead of attempting to bring them into agreement with God's intention for us. How do you stop yourself from bombarding your problems these days, Shannon B?
Well, that brings me to thinking about how before I used to think God's will was when something worked out the way that I wanted it to, like, oh, must
Yeah.
be God's will, as I've tried to orchestrate everything to work. Like it says, like, I'm the director, I'm the actor, I'm, doing the costume change, I'm running the set, I'm selling the tickets. Like, it's all me in full-blown control of how I need an outcome to come, right? But today, however something is supposed to be, I have to be willing to accept that's how it is. Now, that does not mean
Acceptance.
acceptance is huge, right? So that does not mean that if I will give this an example that, okay, someone's looking for a job, okay? It doesn't mean that they sit at home and wait for someone to come knocking on the door, look at your little dog, and say, "Here's the job for you." Or they don't come knocking and it's like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm not supposed to be working," right? It doesn't go like that. It means that you're gonna do what you need to get to where you need to be, but the journey is how it's supposed to be, right? So I know today that if I show up to the best of my ability, right, and I take accountability for myself and I try, however it's going to pan out, I need to believe that that's how it's supposed to be. Like that's God's will for me. Right? And this last year, like, things have been a lot different than they were before, right? Because I've had to shape shift and course correct and like make some real changes. And it hasn't been the most comfortable. And there have been very trying times, but those are lessons that I've needed to learn. So accept that, right? I show up today, for example, I've started this beautiful day off prayer, meditation, podcast with you. I know the things I need to do. And, I'm going to chip away at those and I'm going to show up in my best state that I can. However, everything unfolds today, like I don't have any control over, right? And just because something's not perfect doesn't mean that it hasn't still been beautiful in a way. God's got the control of the outcome. Like he knows the direction that my life's going to go. I just have to trust enough, stay in acceptance, and surrender to the process, if that makes any sense. Did in my head.
Yeah.
Hopefully it did when I came out, right?
Yeah. That's
So
beautiful.
it's God's will is now my will, not God. Let me tell you how things need to go, and then you need to get on board to provide that outcome for me. No, I just have to trust and keep my faith, and it's so much easier that way. We're not having to like, manipulate, c- control, change everything. We can just show up as we are, our happy, grateful selves, and enjoy life. Right? Like I want to feel real joy. Happiness is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a state of mind, right? Like based on I'm in this situation, I'm happy the way things are, but it's a choice, right? Like overall joy is an actual state of mind. It's a life that we get to live. Like finding joy in even the small things.
Yeah.
What about
Well
you?
put. So, you know, when I read this, it made me think of that kind of part of the reading that we used to do about the puppeteer and all that, that we were in control of all the actors. And then there's a part somewhere in the big book where it says like, how could everybody not react with resentment and anger to that? And I remember, thinking when I had things real organized and I was like living in complete self-centered will, you know, that it was like I had the expectation of gratitude from everybody, that I had put so much effort into to setting everything up for everyone, you know?
How dare
And
they not thank me and not just thank me, but over the top,
yeah,
right? And be
yeah.
thanking me constantly.
And that, like, it was a real kick to the ego to realize how deluded I was in what I was expecting. Like that was just absolute craziness. And I felt really shameful for a little bit actually about it, for sure. Was able to let that go. But it's also something now that I've got to catch myself in. Like, one of the things I think I try to do now is, I try to make plans for myself and have questions about plans for other people. And like just as a shift in my life, like I'm happy knowing what blocks of time I have and I can gratefully fill them. If I have an idea, instead of like pre-planning before I've even talked to someone now, I'm like, okay, I've got to ask them if this is what, they would be open to doing that day, or not even just open to, but actually enjoy doing, like I hate the reluctant participant. I really do. Like I would rather you either fucking really want to do it together or we just don't do it together. Like, you know, because
But look at what you just said there too, is that like asking people, you know what I mean? Like you
mm,
don't get up and decide this is what my wife and my family and I are all doing today without bothering to ask them at all if that's something they'd be
mm,
interested in. Or you can, but then that's just going to stack a resentment, right? Or having these
yeah,
expectations of somebody's free time or how they're going to engage with you that day without even so much as communicating. Like I wouldn't
mm.
want somebody to do that to me, right? So it's like, yeah. And hey, guess what? Maybe your plan isn't what theirs is, but you can still go do it, right?
And you know, I am currently struggling though, definitely with having expectations on me, like with that not being reciprocated. That's it is an issue that is coming up frequently for me because it's like I don't want to live a puppet in someone else's show either. And so that's a difficult one, and it's something that I'm trying to learn about and trying to navigate on a regular basis now, you know, because
Communication,
it's
right?
it is
Holding boundaries.
communication, but yeah, you know what though? It's like, man, that's really easy if somebody else is willing to change, and that's not always the case, you know. Some people are quite comfortable in their lives, and that can be difficult, you know. And
It sure can. And you know what? That's just the growing for you too, is
mhm,
this is ultimately even loved ones, right? Like we're not responsible for how somebody else is going to take something, right?
yep,
If it's not healthy for you and like you're giving people grace, right? You want the same shown to you, but sometimes it just comes down to saying, hey, you know what? That's just not going to work for me. And
mhm,
that's that. And
yep.
however, they respond, it's not your job to get them on board, really.
No, no, and I don't think it is. That was just you know, just something that kind of pondered through my brain right
For
now,
sure.
saying
But
it.
I used
You
to,
know, it's like
but I
if
fall
I
into that people pleasing too. You know what I mean?
mhm,
But then it's
yep.
like all
Yeah, but
expectation.
it's the opposite of people pleasing when you refuse to anymore. And when you've
Yeah.
been a people pleaser for 21 years prior to coming into recovery, changing that expectation that you will be a people pleaser is very grindy at moments, let's just say.
Well, we're like, hey, we're changing, and they're like, no, 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 and you're like, the change is happening.
No, they're like, I want you to stop using, but I want the other parts that were serving me and my codependency to be the same.
Right?
And you know, like I can understand why it's a disappointment. I can. But then you know, like I just I have to live with that and change with it all the time, right? Like, you know, that's all. Do you have another question?
No, that was great.
Nope.
I love
Okay.
what we're sharing today.
Well,
Was
ending on a
wonderful.
funny note there. You know what? Today was wonderful, and you're wonderful, and I'm really
So are
glad that
you
we're still friends. And you know,
forever, my
honestly,
friend.
I felt like today was our best one together. Really, I felt like there was just a real playful intelligence that I really enjoyed. Uh,
And I appreciate your
batting that
perspective. I
ball back
learned a
and forth.
lot. I learned a lot
Yep.
talking with you, and you have some real pearls that just fire me up, and I'm like, "Hey, you know what? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think too," because you're really
Yeah.
good at putting thoughts and, um, just stuff that I struggle with into, words and really putting a name on it and helping me to identify my feelings. So I'm really grateful for you, my friend. I'm grateful for our podcast too. And I hope that you have an incredible day in Mexico. It's
Mm.
snowing and freezing here. So, you're
Well, like yeah, like I'm like, do I go in the pool or go in the ocean? This is
I'm
my
like, he's
quandary
in a
right now.
tank top and I'm going to grab a sweater. What is going on in this world?
I know. Maybe some winter you'll have to come down and do a
I'd
live one
love
down
to.
here.
I'd love
Yeah.
to. You have
So
yourself a great day. And we're
I'll
gonna
see
do
you
this next
next
week
week
too.
for step 4. Yeah.
Bang,
Okay.
I
So
love it when the
everybody
rubber
out
hits
there,
the road.
Tune in next time for more recovery fun. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Please help us help others. If you'd like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.